Hey everyone, welcome to this brand new episode of Phenoms. In today's episode, we're very lucky to have our guest, Isaac. He is from MotorMia, and they just raised a beautiful round of $8 million. And we're going to go into it. Isaac, can you tell our viewers a little bit about your backstory? Like, where did you begin before even being a business owner?
Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, son of immigrants from France. Parents moved out here from Paris. One of those families that didn't have much, so I had to get an early start in life. I want to say from the moment that I can walk, I started to sell things, buy and sell things. If I wasn't making money, I wasn't going to enjoy anything that didn't that people would want as they were growing up. So as a high school kid, sell soda, sell candy, sell whatever. Eventually, I had enough money to start my first business, which was buying and selling cars, particularly enthusiast cars. It was called 5-speed cars. And so my niche was buying cars that had a manual transmission and, started with one Jeep Wrangler. Over the next 8 years, from the age 16 through 24, it became thousands and tens of thousands of enthusiast cars.
Wow.
I was very fortunate because during that journey, um, Fast and Furious film came out and it made everybody in America want a manual car. And that was my specialty. So I got, you know, that,
Mm.
that business did really well for me, really well for my family. It put me in a position where I can sustain myself and then all those kind of things. It was really, really great. Very, very fortunate, very lucky in that regard. Worked very hard, 24/7. I don't even remember when I slept during that time in my life. And 2000, I met and married an Israeli woman who, the day after we signed the contract, she informed me we're moving to Tel Aviv in
Oh,
Israel.
wow.
So I started my life primarily as an oil and grease guy, not a tech guy, just working on cars, selling cars. It was my passion. It was my business. It was everything I talked about, those kind of things. Hustling, if you ever heard that word. A traditional New York hustler. When I landed in Tel Aviv, the most obvious question you ask when you move into a new country is like, how do you make money in this place? And the unanimous answer that I got from every Israeli was, we build tech companies and we sell them to big American companies. That was kind of like the vibe in that time. So, these Israeli founders would develop tech, big American corporation would come in, write them $100 million check, and everybody called that the exit. So that was like the version of the Israeli dream. And I said, interesting. The next almost 12 years, I went on a serial, what I call startuppreneurial journey. I was not a founder, but I was very hell bent on finding founders who had good ideas with, three, four people in a room that were missing the business guy, you know. And so fortunately for me, I found a lot of good founders with good products where I had the core belief that I could make it rain, as they say in sales. So I started with Wix.com. It was a
Wow.
website builder where it was like super simple
Yeah.
idea, but transformational. As a small medium business owner prior to that, you kind of knew how difficult it was to build a website, and I saw it as something incredible. Then moved over to a company named SimilarWeb. Same concept,
Huge.
or and the founders at the time, 3, 4 people in a room. We want to build this marketing intelligence platform as coming from Wix, which was in essence a very sophisticated marketing machine with a very good conversion funnel. Going into SimilarWeb, I kind of knew that the one missing piece in all the questions we would ask internally at Wix was like, where's the competition advertising? So SimilarWeb as a value proposition was very resonated with me a lot. Led the sales there, and I mean, the outcome today, it's a public company and did really, really well. Then I met the founders of a startup called Yotpo, YOTPO. They built the 5-star rating system that you plug into all the e-commerce sites. So Amazon had the 5-star rating system or user-generated content. Everybody was going crazy. They loved it and helped them make their purchase decisions. But then there were millions of other e-commerce sites built on Shopify, Magento, and WooCommerce, and all these crazy platforms where you didn't have that UGC functionality. And this was that was their vision, was to bring UGC to the front lines for e-commerce. And to me, it was a no-brainer coming from America, shopping on Amazon, all the beautiful conveniences, and understanding what that meant for my buying decisions. So that was that journey. They're still alive, well, doing, really, really well. They haven't gone public yet. Um, Followed that company with the founders of a company called Bring. Bring was a last mile logistics technology company. They basically built that tracking technology or screen that you embed in different apps to see in the last mile, where's the driver. Again, knowing the Amazon experience here, you love the 2-day shipping. You love the fact that you knew exactly where the driver was coming to your home. Now, every other shop that you want to deal with, every other brand, you have the same expectations. Where's my package?
Yes,
And so
absolutely. In
Bring
every
built,
delivery app. Yeah.
yeah. So Bring built that white label solution that you can embed to manage both your logistics and serve up that customer experience. So same journey. In each company, I was in that $0 to $50 million kind of phase. That was my
Well,
specialty. Ground zero, 50 million was kind of like when I got bored. Um,
I love it.
and
And
then
quick question for
then
you.
yeah,
Before we even go further, if we just take you back into the past, and if we were just a fly in the wall, back in France, where you when you were still, very young, like how would you describe yourself, as just a kid on the block?
crazy,
Mm.
out of the box. I mean, I'm left-handed. Never agreed
Oh,
with what anybody told me was status quo. I always was very curious. My family was a family of Orthodox Jews. I grew up in an Orthodox home. So you learn a lot, you study a lot. The fundamental of studying in Judaism is primarily around debating, like
yeah,
laws and different point of views, trying to find common ground. So being exposed to a lot of that as well as that, I think there's an element of that.
yeah,
Incredibly resourceful and very survivor mentality. I was a lot of people around me were well off, doing, coming from families that weren't missing anything. But that was my environment. So like, what do you do to even level up in that world? You just have to, put your own energy behind it. So I think, I never sat down, never did what anybody told me, always challenged status quo, and took a lot of pride in just making shit happen myself, like not
I
asking
love
people
that.
for favors. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you remember, you said that you've initially created a few small businesses when you were super young. Do you remember your absolute first sale when you were still like hyper young at like 16 or something like that?
It was younger than that.
Oh God,
So it's a funny story. In the junior high school, I was yeah, I think I was 13 or 12. I can't remember. We had a canteen. You know what a canteen is?
of course. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we had a canteen, and basically what would happen is at the end of the day, school would clock out. I think it was like 4:30. I can't remember the exact hour. Everybody would run downstairs. There's this like 30-minute lag between when you're out from class and people start boarding the buses to go home.
Yeah. Yes.
And so where everybody goes in those 30 minutes was the canteen. And I only understand this in retrospect. I didn't understand the intuition then, but I only in retrospect I understand the intuition that I had at the time. But one thing I noticed is that everybody that was jumping into the canteen were there was a feeding frenzy off over these chocolate hearts. There were these chocolate hearts wrapped in a red foil. So you go into the canteen, people buy sodas and candy, whatever, but everybody was buying the 2 chocolate hearts for $1. You know, it was like kinda like that the upsell at the counter when you go to, like, Walmart, right? Like, when you buy the pack of gum at the end. And, the line would be out the door. Now, my parents didn't give me a cent to buy, food from the canteen, but I had, my own money. I had my own money, and I recognized, hey, how much are those chocolate hearts? Like, I guess that's what I was thinking, just thinking of what are these the cost of this chocolate hearts? I ended up going to Costco at the time and buying like this huge container of chocolate hearts where like mathematically I think it came out to like 5 cents a chocolate heart. And every day, while everybody would be waiting at the canteen to go buy the candies and stuff, I would basically walk up and down that long line and just sell people the chocolate hearts for cheaper.
Yeah, already a hustler. Wow.
So they would create the demand. I brought the supply and just created and just made money. And I would easily make, four or $500 a week just selling chocolate hearts.
Wow. Jesus. Yeah, that's
Then
big
it
for when you're
became
13.
yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. Wait till I tell you how much Mia makes every week, and she's only 7.
Oh
But,
god. Okay.
my little one. But,
Yeah.
so that was the start. That was like my first quote unquote sale, just hacking the chocolate heart purchase, play. And then it became like selling notes in school, and then I would buy sodas and sell sodas, and eventually, people would wanna get rid of clothing, so I would buy it, refurbish it, and sell it, on the buy and sell ads. There was so many, like, anytime there was inventory and there was a place to sell it, buy low, sell high, I would do it. When I was 14, 15, this was, like, my first, let's call it, business establishment. I would sell at
It's
the
so
flea
young.
I would sell at the yeah, I would sell at the flea market. So I would go every weekend to the flea markets. I'd pay $50 of rent to get a stand, and I would
Wow.
have a table, and I would, just sell whatever products that I had really cheap. Eventually eventually it became selling cell phone accessories at the flea market, but, if you remember back in the day what cell phones looked like, you
Oh,
had your
yeah.
Nokias, your
Flip
Motorola's, your Sony
phones, yeah.
Ericssons, and people were switching out light up antennas and customizing the cover and changing the buttons and I would buy this stuff from Chinatown for like 2 cents, whatever, bring it to the flea markets, and as people were walking up and down the aisles selling them these cell phone accessories, and eventually I created a monopoly of cell phone accessories in the flea market. So if you
Nice.
think about, like, the flea market, there's, like, 12 rows and people would go up and down, and I noticed, like, I was in the beginning, so everybody would pass by hunting the flea market for maybe a cheaper price. So, over time, it became one stand became, like, 40 stands, and I would just have cell phone accessory stands, like, like, 20 feet. So if you bought it at my first stand, you paid the highest price. If you were so desperate to get a cheaper
Oh.
price, you bought it at my last stand for, maybe 30% off or whatever it was. So,
Wow,
I was a
that's
little
a
crazy. I was a
nice
little
lesson,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah.
of people, when they start hustling, they usually do it like anywhere between, 18 to like 20 when they get out of university. But you started really young, like at 13 or 14. Like that's so young. Your brain gets wired completely different. That's crazy.
Yeah, my parents had no money. And, I had some bar mitzvah money from that, and that became like the foundations of $1 becomes 2, $2 becomes 10, 10 becomes 50, 50 becomes 100. I think the ability to survive is built is a part of us as humans the moment that we are born. But, the question is, when does it come to life, and do you ever really need it? Desperate times call for desperate measures. Always very optimistic in my ability to just make stuff happen. So I think, and it's something that I try to teach my kid today as well. Like, I was very courageous. I wasn't the child that, like, if you needed to ask somebody for something, I needed to ask my mother to go ask the person. I would just go up to the person and say, "Can I get the ketchup?" Like,
Ah,
that kind of thing. So I
right.
think
So you didn't
courage
ask
played
for
a very big.
permission.
I wasn't afraid to ask. I wasn't afraid to, you know, go to a complete stranger and say, "Hey, are you done with the salt?" Today, most parents won't even let their kid walk 2 feet away from the table in the restaurant. So things like that. So, so I think the fundamental was being very courageous, like just having courage and not being afraid of negative outcomes and or of rejection. So I think the fear of rejection was beaten out of me at a very, very young age. And I think that becomes an advantage as you grow up.
Absolutely. I love the way you said it. It got beaten out of you because some people they just don't want to hurt themselves, right? Like they're with parents that are overprotective and they can't
Right.
get hurt. So they don't feel any pain and pain is the ultimate teacher in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, and as you established that car business back in the United States, can you share a few challenges that you had? Because I understand that you also left the United States to go to Israel, but how did that go? Did you just leave the business be? Can you share, a little bit about that journey there?
I mean, building the business was a nightmare, but it worked out. I had a method. That was, one becomes two, two becomes four, four becomes eight. There's no other way to do it. I couldn't get financing. I couldn't get, whatever. And, I didn't try to work on the complicated, I didn't try to build a dealership and get licensed or anything sophisticated. Initially I sell the car in the streets. Eventually I sold the cars at the flea markets. Later down the
Oh,
road, I had an actual lot and all those kind of things. But so that's kind of like a progression. When 8 years were done, I just sold the assets, and that's how you shut down a business like that. The cars are the assets of that business, so you just sell the assets, and the story's over.
I love that. It's very smart and efficient also. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, was I emotionally attached to the business itself? No, I was emotionally attached to the cars, and one of the cars, it's not here, it's all the way up front, was the first car I ever bought for myself.
Which
That I
model is
had
it?
on
I'm
my
just
dealers.
curious.
It's a Mazda Miata.
Ah,
It's a
yeah. It's a
1995
good one,
Mazda
right?
Miata. What's that?
It's a really popular model back in the days. Pretty
It's
much
still
everyone
very
wanted that.
popular. There's a 1995 Mazda Miata. It's an M edition. It's a special edition. It's the first car I built. I turbocharged the car. I own it
Nice.
for 25 plus years. It's
Wow.
in mint condition. And my daughter Mia is named after the Miata and the company after Mia. Like, it all connects. So that was the one car I kept. But if I kept all the other cars that I sold before leaving, I'd probably be a billionaire today.
Yeah, I can imagine. Maybe you can share some interesting models along the way that you've owned that people would find, tempting.
I mean, pretty much every enthusiast car you could think of today that came from the 90s was part of my inventory. So your
Wow.
MR2s, your 300ZXs, people talk about Supras today like it's like the golden child. I drove like 30, 40 Supras back in the day. NSX, like the YJ, CJ Jeep Wranglers, I mean, you name it. You name it, I had it. As long as the car had a manual transmission, I bought it. That was the definition of an enthusiast in those years. The definition of enthusiast in the late 90s, early 2000s was you drove a manual in a world where everybody was moving over to an automatic transmission. Like, today, it's a different definition. Today, it's if you own a specific car, it doesn't necessarily tie to the transmission of the vehicle. And in the future, it'll be probably you drive. That's part of the vision of MotorMia, like that we believe that there will be a world where we will share the road with cars that are fully automated, and most of our transactional driving will be fully automated. And so the definition of an enthusiast in that era will be I drive in a world where I don't need to drive at all, right? And that's what's makes this business very interesting, because the TAM today is a third of the United States of America, where I'm not even including the rest of the world. In a world where AI is doing all the driving, I think every American will keep one car in the garage to drive themselves, and so everyone will become an enthusiast someday. The definition will shift, and what they need in order to be an enthusiast will change slightly. That's kind of like the part of the journey. But yeah, just got up and went. No, nothing complicated.
I love it. I love it. And you know what's interesting? Back in the days, in the 1990s, people were still playing Need for Speed in these cars, but you actually owned them, by
I
hustling
own
like
them.
crazy. And you
That was
actually,
the best part of the car. I never felt in that business, never felt like I lost money. Even if I lost money on a car, and it happened like once or twice, like I got to enjoy the car for 3 months, so like I didn't lose money. Like there was no losing money. There was no scenario where I lost money. What's my worst case scenario? I keep a car that I like. Like what's my worst case scenario? There was no worst case scenario for me.
that's amazing. And I think a lot of founders right now that are struggling, they're building something from scratch. They don't have that platform where they can, build something from already some kind of cash flow, right? On your side, you already had that, so it helped you out. The mindset was there. So I'm curious, did you already have signals back when you were still in the United States that you were going to build like a tech company somewhere like in Israel,
No,
eventually? No? Okay, okay.
no, no.
Interesting. So this really,
I was not on the tech wasn't even on my radar. I didn't even use the internet at that point. Like I didn't
wow.
care for all this tech stuff. Like people were buying the iPhones and the whatevers. Like it was totally not on my radar. I mean, cars was on my radar, but tech wasn't of interest whatsoever. But in Israel, it's the only economy, and you got to make money. You don't stop till you die. At least in my opinion. So like, I get there, and that's what I learned is the ecosystem. So I had to adapt. Like fundamentally, everything's a business. In the end of the day, you're just selling something else. So here it's a code, it's experience, it's a product, it's whatever. So you just need to reorient your core skills, which is just market making, and align it with that. In time I became very technical as well. I started to, you know, a person that is almost always resourceful, is always willing to teach themselves things, is always willing to try things and all of that. So I even got comfortable with the technical side of the tech world. So I started with the sales side, but eventually got really comfortable with the technical side as well.
And how long did it take you to transition from, the grease monkey type of role over to the tech side where you're building up a startup?
It took 2 months.
Okay.
I
Wow.
landed in Israel. 2 months later, I got the opportunity at Wix. I mean,
Bam.
startups are for anybody like looking for a job with no barriers of entry. Like, and I don't have like these preconditions. I must make X. I must make Y. I must be A. I must be B. Like, you meet the founders. Like, you tell them I want to help you build the company. Like, they're ready to play ball, and they say like, "What do you want?" And like, what can you pay? And and if they can pay X, you negotiate a little bit, and I don't think about the now. I think where it's gonna where it's gonna take me, right? So like, I mean, they paid me peanuts when I started at Wix, but
That's important.
it didn't
Yeah.
matter.
I think a lot of founders, when they start up, they also have a leg in the pool of different startups in their ecosystems. Like, for example, in California or in New York, these big hubs. and they get a little bit of experience there just to kind of see the pains in the markets. Was it a little bit the same experience for you where you finally spotted some signals of a huge market pain that you decided to solve with MotorMia?
No, the MotorMia founding story is like completely like left field. I'm referring to the tech companies I decided to join in Israel that did ultimately really, really well. In that context, it was very simple. I understand business. These guys built a product. They're not the ones that understand business, and I closed that gap because, in the end of the day, they got to go from that $0 to $10 million journey to get to the Series B plus and move on. The MotorMia founding story is completely different, completely different. I moved back to America in 2022, primarily just to come back to America, I guess. There's no like real super reason why I came back. And, when I landed here in Scottsdale, which was considered a good place to live, I decided to buy all the cars that I couldn't own while I was living in Israel, because Israel, you don't own cars. Like
I
it's not a
love that.
necessity. So I bought a whole bunch of cars. I mean, it was 6 cars almost instantaneously, and brought my hobby back to the front lines, and spent all day working on them and wrenching on them and having a good time with them. And there's my little girl, Mia, who, shares that passion with me. At the time she was 5 years old. "Daddy, let me help you. Let me try."
Oh,
So now I got to share the the grease monkey experience with my little girl. And, I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't working. I wasn't, you know hustling, I guess. I was really just trying to relive my passion. And one day, like, Mia came to me while I was working. So she would always ask me, like, "Let me try. I'm installing a big brake kit. I wanna try. What does it do? How do we put it on? Let me try this tool. Let me." Like, I don't know if you have kids, but this is, like, the way they behave, especially my kid. One day she comes to me and says, "Daddy, I was working on the 4C." You see it? It's literally right there. That's the Alfa Romeo 4C. I was working on the 4C, and she comes to me and she says, "Daddy, how do I make the car pink?" So I said, "You have to take the paint off, you put it in a paint booth thingy." She's like, "Can we try? Can we do it?" I'm like, "No, you can't really try, but thingy." But she's like, "I want to see the car in pink. Like, how can we make the car pink?" And that's when, like, she asked that question at the exact same time OpenAI became a huge hit. It was November 2022, if you remember. Like, everybody jumped on the bandwagon of OpenAI. DALL-E just got released, and I took a picture of her in front of the 4C. It's on my Instagram page. And I asked DALL-E, literally the first prompt I ever told DALL-E was, take the picture of the car of the 4C and the little girl on the thing and make the car pink, whatever. And it outputted, a little girl standing in front of a pink version of the 4C. And I showed it to Mia, and Mia goes berserk. "Oh my God, so cool. Daddy made the car pink. Daddy made the car pink." She's telling her mother, her grandma, her friends, her teachers, the whole world, "My daddy made the car pink. My daddy made the car pink." And she would run around with this picture. And I thought it was a very profound reaction. And also the technology was profound. And so, I asked myself, can I use this AI to help me with my build? And I'm not even thinking business now. I'm just like, I'm working on this build. There's a pain point when you're building cars. It's like identifying the right modifications, the fitment, what I call real world evidence, or like enthusiast consensus. What do all the enthusiasts agree is the best mod to do on this car, of which brand, which one should come first, last, whatever. We talk about these things unstructured on the web, and manufacturers talk about these things unstructured in the web. But like, when you as an enthusiast start this journey, you try to create a consensus so you can decide what your build's going to be. That's basically kind of like what we do. Every time we buy a car, we want to change something about the car. So ChatGPT, I asked myself, could I use this thing to help me build my cars? And so I started learning the prompting mechanism and the vector databases at the time that you could attach, and all this kind of stuff. And so I added parts, and I added things that I scraped off the forums and different areas into the thing, and I wrote to the prompt, like, trying to improve the handling of my 4C, like, what would be the best, shock absorber or best upgrades for the car or whatever. And I was, like, shocked, like, how good it
It's good,
was, like,
no?
and think about, like, what it was 2 years ago. It's crap compared to today, but even then it was mind-blowing to see that, like, you could just output like that, a consensus.
Yep.
Um, so I actually started using ChatGPT as another tool in my garage to work on my cars, like all my other tools.
Wow.
And,
That's that's
of
wild.
course, but that's not like the magic moment. The magic moment is when Mia says, "I wanna try,"
Hmm.
because she wants to try
Mhm.
everything in the garage. So I'm trying to tell her, like, you have to write sentences and this and that and this whole thing. She wasn't figuring it out. So I changed my prompt to be a Q&A engine versus a question response engine. So all
Mm.
you had to do was Mia would walk you through questions, and all you had to say was ABC, 1, 2, 3, yes, no. So Mia can
Mhm.
play with it. So I would say, Mia, we're gonna upgrade the brakes today. So and I called it Ask Mia, like, ask Mia, like, what brakes we should put on the car. And she would go
Ah.
through this Q&A engine, and she would say, okay, we should get these brakes. Like, sometimes she was right, sometimes she would mess it up, but she had fun. And she was able
Yeah.
to engage with the prompt no different than how I can engage with the prompt. And that's when, like,
Mhm.
the light bulb moment came on. I said, what if I can use all this AI magic? I don't know exactly how it all works to build a real world Gran Turismo. I bet you every freaking enthusiast in the world would love it. So I started sharing that tool in the forums with different people. Like, hey, I built a prompt that helps you build your 4C. I built this, when everybody was sharing prompts and all this kind of stuff. I saw the initial reaction and I said, okay, this is going to be massive. And so I put it together. I released it to the world on a web app in June of 23, 24, and it was an overnight success. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people came in within weeks of using it. And now, like, we're 9 months, 10 months from that time, from when we fundraised. I mean, we fundraised immediately after that, big spike. And then, we continue to generate users and improve the funnel. We moved from web app to mobile web app, to like a, wrapped web app. Now we just got the native app and we're doing all the homework. But effectively, what we're building is an enthusiast, Mia, and- but she comes in the form of AI. And so she can be like the partner of any other enthusiast trying to build out their car, and she's able to scale very quickly in her knowledge base because of what the technology can do. I mean, which you understand.
I'm just curious, so you released the MVP,
So
I
we have
guess,
Mia to
and
thank.
yeah. Yes, absolutely. She's amazing, and she's the soul behind the AI, right? Uh, and
100%.
I'm just yeah. And before you raised, did you have like a little moment where you were thinking of staying bootstrapped, or that faded really quickly?
I like equity value plays. I like the scale of equity value plays. You know, I don't have negative opinions of bootstrap because I've done bootstrap, right? I've built businesses with my own money and made a ton. If you want to transform an industry, you need an incredible team. And a team is not just yourself. It's not just the people you hire. It's even the external people who observe and watch you and give you ideas of what to do and how to break it down, the strategics. Um, so the investor for me is a strategic. It's somebody that looks unbiased externally at your outcomes as you progress, can bring in the context from the outside world into your world and just guide the business in the direction of, in the direction of the industry trends. So, for me, like, if you really, really want to transform an entire industry, you want to build a category defining product, especially in our case, we're a left field product. We don't look like anything else, right? Like, hey, VCs, I'm building a platform for car enthusiasts using AI, right? Like, I mean, that no one hears that every day.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you want to take over, which means like it's going to be very transformational for the industry. You're trying to chase category leadership. You're trying to chase a really big vision. You're trying to change. You're not trying to disrupt. You're trying to help an entire industry that sits very legacy evolve quickly into a technology that they're probably going to be the last ones in line to even look at it because they're so old fashioned from the tech perspective. I quite often people ask me like, I don't understand like why nobody's done anything. I say that it's not that there's no technology in the aftermarket. It's that all the technology is in the hardware. People go crazy over improving the hardware. No one ever thinks of the software. We want to make better wheels. We want to put carbon fiber. We want to make it stronger and fat and lighter. So we're developing suspensions and we're putting so much R&D thought in the products that are going on the cars, but no one put any R&D energy behind the technology, like the code element that brings it all together. So, in my view, and never for a second did I say this thing should be bootstrapped. This needs to be an equity value play with a team that spans people internally, people externally, that can look at the equation of how do you combine, you know, AI, growth engines, this audience and future audiences, you know, quickly and eventually at exponential scale. So yeah, it's a B2C play. I mean, it's so no, I'm not greedy. I like when everybody wins.
No, I love that. And can you share with our audience the numbers of those that you got from all of these investors that you went after? Approximately,
In my case, not a lot.
yeah?
The first person I approached said yes.
Wow. Oh my God. That's
Yeah.
that's incredible. On our previous
But
interviews,
that's a timing thing. That's a
yeah,
timing thing. Like that's a sales thing. It's like maybe the traditional founder would have asked a bunch of people and talked to a bunch of people and all that kind of stuff to raise that round. And me, like I know like when I have something to sell, like you remember the chocolate story, like the line is there. All I got to do is tell the line I have this, yeah, I have something to sell. I think that a little bit of that thinking came into the fundraising part of this journey, which is it's important, but like you knew that if you brought this to the line of VCs that are out there, the first person that sees it would say yes, like just like the chocolate hearts. Really, it's an instinct. It becomes an instinct at some point. I'm sure it's going to get harder over time. I'm sure it's going to get harder over time. There'll be more no's down later rounds, but in that early story, you can get a yes even on the first try, and technically.
wow. Well, that's incredible because, in our previous episodes, most founders, approximately it's 100 to 150 no's to get to, like a series seed of like 3 million or something like that. So
Are they
definitely it's not.
technical?
Uh, some of them are more technical, others are more on the sales side. So I think, it's a numbers game at that point, but it's incredible that you got the first yes on the first try. Like, wow, congrats on that. That's amazing. And, I'm curious, once you received the funds in your bank account, do you remember, did you celebrate or did you go away and straight hustled like crazy? What was like your mindset when you received the actual funds?
Nothing unique. Did not celebrate. I mean, I'm not a big believer in like crazy celebrations along the way. I believe that you should, pat yourself. I mean, not myself, but your team on the back when you have certain achievements. But there's only one celebration is if you achieve your vision. For me, startups is 0, 1. Don't look for anything in between. That's like the survivor mentality I told you about. Like do or die. Like there's nothing in between. I wouldn't call if in 2 years from now MotorMia doesn't work out. I will not come out with the statements of, oh, but it was a great journey and we did all this and I got this far. Like No, it's 0, 1. So that's like, there's no choice.
It's really interesting. You know, your mindset is very unique in the ecosystem of startups, and I think you have this get it all or just die trying type of mentality. There is no way around it, right? And at this point, once you got the funds, what changed? What was the most brutal change in your organization? The way that you keep
The
building.
team,
Maybe you can share. Yeah,
the
the team.
team, the team, the team, 100% the team. Look, it's really simple. A startup is an exercise. Building a startup is an exercise in recruiting. Forget
True.
the idea, forget everything else. Like the first thing it is an exercise in recruitment. Like building an incredible team. And that is
Mm.
super hard at the early stage when people, where most of the world has to see something to believe something. Um, you know, the startups that I joined were spoiled by my attitude of I don't need to see anything to believe something. I see it myself, right? Like,
Right.
a lot of the world needs to see something to believe something, right? And so like you have to work really, really hard to fine tune what you ultimately will call like your founding team that will execute to achieve a series A and later down the road a series B and whatever it is. So that is by
Sure.
far the hardest thing.
And
But if
can
you
you
can solve
share?
the team equation,
Mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious here. You're saying we need to solve the team equation. What was your best learning so far that you can share with the startup community that is tuned in? What would you tell them to do, amongst the top three things that need to be done to hire well?
Yeah, don't compromise. Spend the money. Spend the money. I mean, a lot of people hesitate around spending the money, even myself. It's like, you know, if the best engineer is there and you're saying I'm going to go with the alternative because he costs, $50,000 less, do yourself a favor and just go with the best engineer and worry about it later whether you could still afford them. It's monthly payments. It's not annual. Like
I
the
love that.
payments are monthly. They're not annual, right? I think a lot of people get caught up on the annual number, but in the end of the day, the payments are monthly. Even I made that mistake in parts of MotorMia's journey, primarily because I didn't have the leadership to tell me that that's not great, right? Like I was a CRO persona trying to run product and trying to run engineering. So so you don't want to, if there is an absolute all-star in front of you, find the way to get them in the door. And even if it means, your monthly payment is higher, pay for it because it's going to be worth it.
Oh, this is
It's
gold.
going to
You're
be worth
dropping
it. It's going to
gold.
save you so much headache. Yeah, I mean, you have to change your mindset that like, what you're used to if you're coming from and being an employee, I was always entrepreneur, so it's a little bit different. But I think like if you're coming from the mindset of having been an employee and now you're trying to start your own journey of being an independent entrepreneur, like the math isn't years, math is months, So one guy costs you 4,000, the other guy costs you 8,000 a month. That's all that matters. Like it doesn't matter if they told you $300,000 a year. If 4 months it doesn't make sense, you change it. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, but if they're the best option that can really maybe make you quantum leaks that you then as the founder can go sell it to the market and get additional funding, other better players, all, partners, users. It translates very top talent translate very quickly into the product. Very quickly. I look 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, I hired my head of product and my head of engineering. I was doing all those functions up until then, because you got to catch your breath, you got to hunt the people down, and then you find them. I mean, it's night and day. It's night and day to run the business. The traction is night and day. Everything is night and day. You know, when you have these like pure play professionals doing great work. So your first task, the moment you close that bank account, you close that round, is to do nothing but find the best people that you can get. And if it costs you money, pay it. It's a monthly payment, not an annual payment. I think that's where people get stuck. Because if you raise $3 million, if you raise $1 million, if you raise $1 million and someone comes in and says the salary is 300,000, your mind is saying, "Oh, so I only have 700,000 left." But no, that's not the math. It's not the math. You know that. You're an entrepreneur.
Yep. And this is really interesting because a lot of founders, they start with, for example, a YC check. It's 500K. And then that type of math, it becomes something which is hyper focalized. They're afraid of spending and they're afraid of hiring the right people. So what you're saying is gold, literally, for the startups watching. Just hire the best, don't compromise, and you will have the best output on the other side. And I'm just curious,
I think the
after.
main
Mhm.
I think the main message I would give the audience is assuming the market is there and your idea is sound, right? Those are the basic assumptions. To win the game, it's an exercise in recruitment. That's it.
I love it. And it's true because at the end of the day, who's running your business? It's definitely the hires, right? Like there's no one else unless you're doing 50% agentic, workflows in the back. That's a little bit different. But yeah, and going forward, so far since you've raised, what was the craziest moments that you had in the startup? Like, for example, did you have a surge in traffic that you had to fix really quickly? Maybe you can, share interesting anecdotes there.
So fortunately, we get a lot of traffic all the time, so it's less of a blow your mind. I think and we had a couple of we had an exciting episode a couple of months where we ended up on national television. A show called Motor Week. It's like the longest standing enthusiast show that runs on PBS. It's been running for 60 years. Like recognized what we were doing and asked us to be on TV. We got a full 5-minute segment, and any OG person who's watching that show, like basically, learned about MotorMia. Um, there was the moments of getting the team members. I think for me, that was like I don't take it for granted when great people join the organization. That gets me excited. I'm saying we've been dealing with a lot of traffic since that first month, so it's been less of a thingy. But the national television coverage was very cool. Then we got some other coverage based on our data, which was also cool. But I'm not ecstatic. For me, the ecstatic moments are more internally. It's like we found, you know, product market fit within the team. Like we have insane chemistry. Everyone feels optimistic. Everyone feels confident. Everybody feels extreme ownership. CEO feels like he can walk away and go work on the strategic stuff. And we have that magic. That makes me like super excited. And I think the market is just gonna keep nothing's really gonna surprise me because I know how big the market is and I wouldn't have chased it if I didn't think it was massive. So nothing will surprise. It's just a matter of just proving it to everybody else. So I'm not really proving it to myself anymore. So now it's just like I guess it's like I'm waiting for the "I told you so" moment, and that'll make me excited. I have no
No,
idea.
I love that. And thanks for being very
Don't take
candid
it too
about this.
seriously. Don't take it
Yeah,
too seriously. Have fun.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what are the biggest learnings so far that you would like to share with our audience? After raising 8 million, what is your mindset, biggest change that you've spotted so far?
Money has no impact on my mindset,
I
to be
love that.
honest.
Wow.
It doesn't. Money has no impact on my mindset at all. I mean, it's not I guess I felt rich the moment I made $100. So there's a like,
Wow.
you know,
And managing now a bigger team, it has a huge impact on your time. So how do you manage your health, for example, and even life balance? You have a kid, you have to be with your wife and family and friends. So with more funds, how do you actually manage with time?
I don't know. I'm a fortunate human being. I mean, my business is tied to my passion, tied to my kid. I diet and exercise to stay healthy and capable, I guess. So if you integrate all those things together, you're running a more efficient day.
For example, since you raised, do you go less to the gym or do you eat differently? Did you see like any change in the health?
No, I've been health conscious for a very long time, and it's almost habit. So no compromises on my health. I've never been a very big sleeper, so no compromises on my sleep. Um, I want to say like there are moments of, I don't even know how to like word it, but like there are moments of, acute like acute depression that introduce themselves when you're in the entrepreneurial journey. Like there are moments where you feel like nobody freaking understands what you're going
Thank
through.
yes.
Yeah, I think there are moments of like acute depression where you're just like, why can't a single person on my team like understand, or empathize with the founder? So I think quite often there are moments where a founder will seek founder empathy, and they chase it for 2, 3 days, and that puts them in a in a depressed state, or, low energy state. And the only way to get out of it is to get out of it themselves, because no one, like, again, like, you're looking for the empathy. So I think that comes to life more and more as you grow your team, because more and more people cannot empathize with the founder.
And how do you deal with that? What's your strategy to get out of your acute depression when it happens? Because a lot of founders are probably saying, "Oh my God, that's happening to me too." What would you share as a tip that actually worked so far?
I mean, I have a cheat code, right? They're all behind me.
Yeah.
My little girl. So that's a little bit of my cheat code. I mean, you go in a car, you go call one of my fast cars, and you drive and you have a good time. Or, you spend more I take Mia to, like, the 7-Eleven, and I just observe her and I enjoy the the uncorrupted version of a human, running around in the world and discovering things, right? Like, I think that's just kinda like what you find your outlets. And then there's always like there might be people that you talk to. Some people have There are moments in my life where I had, sort of mentors or business coaches in a sense. I wouldn't call him that. It's grandpa. He's no longer alive, but like, old people have a lot of wisdom.
How did he
So I usually
influence you?
change, in every way.
Can you share
He's no
the
longer
biggest
alive,
influence?
unfortunately, but
Yeah.
yeah, my grandfather was my biggest influence. Pipe. He's my greatest influence, mainly because he had an insane amount of wisdom. Insane. That's why I wear the owl around my neck, you know? Like, he had an insane amount of wisdom. And the wisdom is just seeing things in life and understanding how to translate them to current day. He was very good at that. So, like, he had a lot of great answers for challenges in business and this and that that I, would have faced. So I think there's elements of that today as well. I mean, there are people older than me that are wise and, have a very unbiased response when they address my questions. And that's kind of like where my uncle, things like that. Doesn't last long. You can't let it last long. You just need to accept it for a minute and then deal with it and then get back to the program. Never fool yourself that people on your team and even your investors will ever truly have found their empathy. The only person that may have found their empathy is another founder. But again, we're all so unique that even in that case, it's difficult. What I see as a challenge is not necessarily what the other founders see as a challenge, and what the other founders see as a challenge is not what I see as a challenge. So like it's the founders left to their own mental machine to deal with their emotional challenges as they grow a company. I think for the most part,
Oh, I love
that's
that.
the hard part.
Yeah, this is extremely touching. I think to a lot of founders, they have either their fathers that are, their role models or other founders. And I understand that when you have great people in the family. Yeah, and by the way, can you share with our viewers the silliest mistake so far that you've made while building MotorMia?
The silliest mistake I made while building MotorMia. That's a great question. Um, the answer is we used Cognito for the authentication on the platform, and when we went live, so there's actually 2, like, explosions. The first explosion, we never got to see how big it was gonna explode, and the second one we really saw. Um, and the reason why is because I didn't change the from developer mode to production mode on Cognito.
Oh God.
And
Oh man.
we will never know how many users we lost out on because it lets you do, like, 150 people, and then at that point, it locks itself. So, like, we got 150 users in, like, 3 seconds, and then I think, like, maybe, like, 1,500 users or something like that, like, can exist in thingy. I didn't know that you had to turn on, change modes. So,
It's so good, man.
all we know is that there could have been several thousands of people that signed up in a few hours that we'll never know who they were and what we missed.
No, I love that.
That
And
sucks.
yeah, it really does suck. It's okay. We'll learn from our mistakes, but it's all good. I'm curious, for the investors watching right now, can you share the biggest pain points that you're currently solving with MotorMia that you see that are going to impact the next 2 years, of this journey, of this industry? What's the benefit right now, the biggest benefits that your users are also seeing on the platform?
Biggest benefit that enthusiasts get today from our platform is the ability to simulate their dreams. And anybody who's a car enthusiast always has a dream car in mind, always has a dream modification in mind. And if you've been doing it for a long time, you know the pain points of searching through forums and searching through YouTubes and reading and analyzing and calling and trying to figure out what thing. It's a rabbit. We call it we it's known as the rabbit hole, and it's primarily because the the online experience for car enthusiasts is heavily fragmented. It's probably the most fragmented part of the market. That's why, like, it's also the slowest to go online in terms of e-commerce. It's like the last 4% penetration on car parts and those kind of things because it's so fragmented. So we solve some of that fragmentation. We solve a lot of the user experience side of it. In the end of the day, our core competency as a company is, maximizing the value of this AI technology on behalf of enthusiasts, and then building the perfect integration to the user experience between man and machine. You can't expect every human being out there to be able to learn how to prompt and get insane value out of AI. We as a company try to do everything to make it simple so that way, our audience can get a lot of value out of the AI. I think that's kind of like the idea. But the pain point that we solve for the users has nothing to do with AI. That's not the pain point they feel in their head. What they feel is like, what modifications should I put in my car, and what is that going to do to my car when I put it on the car? And is this what all other enthusiasts endorse? That's like the enthusiast mindset when we search for things, and we help them simulate that. And you know, we're a tuning expert buddy, basically. And that's what enthusiasts want to do. That's what we want to do. 70 million of us in the United States of America.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And this is literally the future of the way that you would tune your cars. And I'm extremely excited to see
Oh,
where it's going.
100%. Mia, if you look at the most insightful human in your life is the youngest person that you know.
Wow.
And in my case, it's my little 7-year-old. When you observe her, when you look at her, when you understand how she interacts, how she responds to things, this is a signal to the future. And if anybody on this video has somebody like that in their life, daughter or niece, whatever, you'll see very quickly like how they are interacting with the digital world, with the world around them, the content they're consuming, the way they're consuming, whatever it is very different than how we did it. And if you don't
Yeah.
level up with the way they work, they will never become consumers of this lifestyle. So you give my daughter her iPad, she knows how to work through that thing better than you ever did in your last 15 years. She doesn't even type. She always talks text. We're
Mm.
still keyboarding away, right? Because we grew, only, maybe once in a while we use talk to text, right? Like
Yeah.
the children like have the purest mind, or the youngest people in your life have the purest, most unbiased mind. So you can very quickly see like how do they see the world. That's what they're going to expect to see in the future.
My
So
God.
if I want somebody like my kid to become a car enthusiast one day, we got to level up what's available to them to match up with the expectations that they're experiencing today.
This is extremely well said. Like you said it before, they are uncorrupted minds, like literally. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's a fresh take on so many different aspects of technology and processes and interactions and user funnels and all that. It's definitely interesting to observe as founders because we understand these type of systems, right? And
right.
I'm curious if clients or even investors want to reach out, like what's the best way of doing that?
Isaac, ISAAC at MotorMia.co, or me at MotorMia.co.
That's awesome. And one last question. So, if you could whisper one thing to yourself at day one of building this company, what would you say to yourself?
Have fun.
Have fun. I love that. Well, Isaac, thank you so much for joining us for this amazing episode. I really appreciate that. It was really fun discussing all of these transparent and candid experiences that you had so far. It was amazing. And
My pleasure.
I'm very, very, very happy to see you grow. Yeah, and everyone watching, thank you so much. And if you enjoyed the episode, please feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. All right, see you in the next one. Cheers.